Oh my god, I'm so excited to be here. This is the first reading wrap up of the year. I haven't done a sit down reading wrap up video in what feels like a million years. It's literally been a few months, but I just enjoy these videos so much and I'm so excited to talk about the books that I read in January. I didn't read as many as I'd like, really not starting off the year strong, but I read some really good books and I cannot wait to talk about them. I also started a lot of books that I didn't end up finishing. So I think Feb, it's the 1st of Feb today, is it? It's the 2nd of Feb today. And I feel like Feb, I've got a good feeling. It's gonna be a good reading month in terms of quantity. That's the plan anyway. I also got some new flowers for my backdrop, which I just thought were a little bit cute, a little bit fun, a little bit fresh for the new year. Thought we'd try some different backgrounds and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, let me know. What did I start reading? Oh, I remember. Okay. So just so you guys know, I also use Fable as my reading tracking system. And I was using Goodreads for a really long time. Everyone knows how clunky Goodreads is. I discovered Fable because I believe Madison Kate, who's another booktuber on YouTube, she was using Fable as well. I've never looked back. It's been so good. It's literally for the aesthetic girlies. So you can see I've only read 4 books this month, but that's totally fine. It just like breaks it down in a way that's so pleasing to the eye. And I find that really motivating to keep me reading. I also have a lot of friends who use it now. I've convinced literally everyone in my life to use it. And this is definitely not sponsored at all. I do enjoy it and I do recommend it to all of my friends. Do with that what you will. So the first book that I read this month was Meet Me on the Lake by Carly Fortune. If there's one thing to know about me, it's that I will read anything that this author writes. She is literally one of my favorite romance authors ever. She does contemporary romance so well. All of her books are, I want to say they're like similar themed, but completely different in storyline, characters, development, plot points, completely different. But the themes are kind of the same. It's always about going back to like a small hometown, meeting up with someone that you maybe previously knew. Like there's a lot of then and now timeline. She does that really, really well. Her first book was Every Summer After, which is an absolute 5-star. That was the first book that I read by her as well. And then I read her most recent book, which is This Summer Will Be Different, and that was phenomenal. I think that was like a 6-star read for me. It literally makes me emotional thinking about just like the setting, the plot, the characters, the development. It was just amazing. And then I read this one last, which is her second book, Meet Me at the Lake. I think I read this one last because I did hear it wasn't her best work, and I would agree with that. It's not her best work. I believe I gave it 3 stars, and I do feel like that makes sense for where it's sat. It is above average and I still love her writing style. I think the characters in this one didn't appeal to me and the setting didn't appeal to me as much as the first 2 that I read. So if you're gonna go into a Carly Fortune book, I wouldn't say start with this one. I would say start with Every Summer After, and then I would read This Summer Will Be Different. Those 2 books are like top tier for me. And then if you really love her work, then I would read this one. So I would read it literally in the reading order that I read it in. If you love The Summer I Turned Pretty, but you want like an adult version of that, these books are for you. They're very much based on small island, beach, coastal towns or lakefront towns and characters that grow a lot and develop and come of age, I guess, throughout the journey. This one in particular is about Fern, whose mum runs almost like an inn situation at like a resort inn on a lakefront town. She's basically forced to go back to her mum's lakeside resort to run the show. She hasn't been back there in around 10 years. It's very confronting for her because she never felt like she wanted to go back there, but now she's kind of, a turn of events has forced her to need to go back. She also runs into a man who she met when she was in New York City, when she was a lot younger, when she almost left her mum's resort and decided and vowed that she wouldn't go back. It's just a great story. I don't want to give too much away, but if you, again, love The Summer I Turned Pretty, that kind of vibe, you'll really like this style of book as well. Now, the next one that I read literally took me a decade to read, and that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This book was so highly anticipated for me. I'd heard such good things about it on Book Talk. Everyone was recommending this book. It was basically like Fourth Wing, but different. So like another version of Fourth Wing, and I absolutely loved Fourth Wing. I definitely jumped on that hype. I am obsessed with it. This did not live up to the same hype. I really struggled with the characters in this book. Just to give you a bit of an idea, I mean, the world building in this is huge, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it. Otherwise, we're literally gonna be here all day. It's basically about a girl who is essentially an assassin of sorts. She has a very troubled history and backstory that you only really learn about throughout the book. She finds herself captured by a group of nobles. She is then rescued by what we know as the Burn King. The Burn King is rescuing her, but then also kind of trapping her in a way and trying to jog her memory of the history that they shared together that she refuses to admit to. It's basically like Avoidant Queen 101. Like, she is the most avoidant person I've ever read about in my life, to the point where you're like, does she not remember, or is she literally just avoiding it so hard that she refuses to actually acknowledge anything that's happened? Plot twist is the latter. So the reasons I didn't love this book is I felt like the rude, bossy, hyper independent assassin girl trope, I just feel like it's a bit overdone. Throne of Glass did it so well. I don't think we need many more of that stereotype. Like, I just want something different, and I felt like it was just leaning into that trope a little bit too much. I also felt like for a book about dragons, and there's 3 different types of dragons, there's all of these different creatures within this world, I did just feel that it was a bit surface level in terms of the dragons. There was also like a lot of world building, not a lot happening. And I feel like for the first book in what I now know as a series, you do kind of need a bit more storyline and character development, and I just don't feel like we really got that. It was just a bit disjointed. I don't know what it was, I just didn't love it. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I feel like if fantasy with not a lot of romance is your vibe, you might like this. And it is very interesting. I did feel like there was a good plot twist, but I did kind of call it from the start. If you watched my reading vlog, which was my last video, I'll link it here as well, you would kind of know what I'm talking about. But okay, I will say the things I did like about this book, because I didn't hate it. I want to make that clear. I didn't hate it. I actually really liked the idea of there being different gods and things like that, but I don't think that was explored heavily enough. I think that the gods influencing the character's abilities was really cool, and I feel like that will probably be developed further in the series, but just hasn't been yet. I also really love when there's a map. You guys know that. I love when there's a glossary at the end. This is the biggest glossary I've ever seen in the history of a fantasy book ever. Like, there's just so pages upon pages of creatures, of time, terms, and ages explained. They definitely thought about this book as they were writing it, obviously. And there's also a family tree, which is super important as well. I don't know if I'll continue the series yet. We'll see. I probably will, but I've heard there's going to be like 6 books or something in the series, and that's just a lot of commitment when this was already so big. And then I read my first non-fiction book of the month. One of my goals this year is to, well, I've got 2 reading goals. The first is to read 50 books in the year. I got to 49 or 48 last year, so I was a bit disappointed that I didn't meet my 50, but this year we are coming in strong. The second goal that I have though is to read 10 non-fiction books. I don't want them to necessarily be the typical self-help books. I find those books really boring and unengaging and tend to not enjoy them. Same with autobiographies. I tend to not enjoy them either, unfortunately, even though as much as I would like to enjoy them, I just don't. I read She's on the Money, and this one is by Victoria Devine. As someone who doesn't know a lot about finances, and I've kind of buried my head in the sand a little bit, essentially my whole life, really outing myself here, I found this book really helpful. I basically stumbled upon this book because I was listening to her podcast, because I ran out of podcasts to listen to, and I was like, oh, I've heard She's on the Money is actually quite good. So I started listening to that. I really liked it. Then I realized that she had a book, and I was like, all right, I'll give that a crack. Why not? I do want to get better with my saving and less impulsive spending, I think, is the biggest thing for me. And I do have a wedding to pay off, so I'm really trying to get ahead of my finances. I found this book to be so good for a beginner. So if you don't know much about money or finances or tax, or super, or saving, or interest, or investing. Like, literally, if you are an infant in terms of finances, aka me, this book is for you. I found it so helpful. I learned so much. It was very easy to digest. She definitely explains things in layman's terms. Like, she's not overcomplicating it, which is really, really good. I can't say a lot about nonfiction. I gave it 5 stars. I don't even know if I'm going to be rating my nonfictions, because are nonfictions even rateable? I don't know. I've saved the best for last. This was my favorite book of the month. I don't know why it took me so long to pick up this book. Again, I did a reading vlog on this, so if you want to watch that, you can. I picked up Daisy Hates finally. This has been on my bookshelf for over a year. I bought it pretty much as soon as I finished Magnolia Parks. I didn't love Magnolia Parks, so I think that actually led to me not starting this one. I gave it 3 stars, the Magnolia Parks one, because I just didn't find the main character super relatable. Not that I find Daisy Hates very relatable, but I just found it had a lot more depth. It's like it went from 0 to 100 in terms of the character development and the poeticness of her writing between those 2 books. This was a 5-star read for me. I was shocked that I enjoyed it so much. It was one of those books that I didn't want to put down. I just wanted to keep reading. I didn't want it to end, so I was like reading it slowly slowly, but only because I wanted to take in every single word that this author wrote. It was just so good. I don't even know why I loved it so much. I think it was just like the perfect combination of drama, depth, character development, humor, a little bit of gang stuff, a little bit of like underground mob stuff, and it's multiple POV as well. It's got like 3 points of view, I believe. It's got Daisy, Christian, and then Julian, which is Daisy's brother. And essentially it's following Daisy Hates, who is the baby sister of the biggest gang lord in London. She is navigating a situationship that she's in with Christian, who is mentioned in the first book. She's mentioned in the first book as well, but he's like more heavily related to the plot of the first book. It's kind of like a will they, won't they. They're both clearly in love with each other, but they don't want to admit it. And it's really, the best way I can describe this series is it's basically Gossip Girl in London. So if you really enjoy like the drama and the toxicness of Gossip Girl, then I think you'll really like this book. But it has a lot more depth than Gossip Girl, I will say that. Like, don't think it's going to be some frivolous, like high society London. It has so much more depth. Like, I was literally almost crying at the end of this book. It was a wild time. So definitely recommend that. 5 stars, 6 stars, 7 stars, 8 stars, 9 stars, 10 stars. It's so good. I literally want to reread it already. So I get the hype now, guys. I get the hype. I'm a little bit late to the train, but I finally understand what you guys are all talking about. So they are all the books that I read in January. I thought as part of this video, because I really didn't read that many books, I thought we'd do a little TBR for February since it's now the 2nd of Feb. And I'm also about almost halfway through Iron Flame, so I definitely want to finish that this month. I might pick up Onyx Storm, I'm not too sure yet, but they're the kind of books that I have on my horizon at the moment. But as always, we have our little TBR jar. I think we'll do 3 books on the TBR, because I really don't want to shoot myself in the foot and only have to read books that are on the TBR. I think that's what I normally do, and then I don't end up reading them. So we're going to avert that. We're going to avoid that this time and see how we go. All right. First prompt. A book that matches the current season. Ooh, it is summer at the moment, so I'll go find some books that relate to that. Second prompt. A book your significant other picked. Ooh, that's actually such a good one because I've got some books from Christmas from Zach because he bought me a couple of books and I have been deeply, desperately wanting to read them. Okay, last prompt. A book that you think you will rate 5 stars. I'm so excited about these. They're gonna be so good. Okay, I'm gonna go grab some books. I'm gonna come back and then we can pick together. I'll get a couple of options for each prompt. I was going to pick some options, but I just found the perfect books for every prompt. The first prompt, a book that matches the current season. I obviously had to pick Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It is obviously summer right now in Australia. I've been waiting to pick this book up and I wanted to read it in the summer, so it's just literally perfect. This one essentially follows 2 people who have realized over a Reddit thread that they actually have the same curse, which is that everyone that they date, can you not please, kind sir? Everyone that they date ends up falling in love and marrying the next person they are with. So for example, if they date someone, that person then goes off to find the love of their life once they break up. And because both of these people, Justin and Emma, have this curse, they've decided to meet up and just kind of see where it takes them. The story kind of follows on from there. I've heard this one is very emotional. It's not just a light, fluffy romance, but it's equally apparently a really, really, really good book. I don't want to get my hopes up about it, but I also feel like this could be a 5-star read. Yours Truly and Part of Your World were essentially 5 stars for me. I think I rated them 4.5, but looking back on them, I really do think they were 5 stars. They were so good. So this being the 3rd book in that interconnected standalone series, I just feel like I'm going to love it. I've got to read this before her next book comes out. So I think it's called Say You'll Remember Me. Maybe Say You'll Remember Me. And it also matches my flowers. How cute. So yeah, that's the book I am definitely going to read this month and I'm so excited. Okay, a book that your significant other picked. I am going to go with this is such a tongue twister. 2 Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, I think. Yeah, Rachel Gillig, good job. This is the 2nd book in the Shepherd King series. There's only 2 books in this duology. The first one is One Dark Window and I really, really loved that. I think I gave it a 4 stars by the end of it. Can you not? You can sit. Come on, sit down. Okay, you're just gonna sit there in the frame. Okay, if it focuses on you, I'm gonna be mad. I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars for the first book. It's just such an interesting magic system. I don't even know how to describe it, but essentially it is like a dark gothic fantasy. The world is so unique. It gives Alice in Wonderland vibes, but way more gothic, more medieval. So that's kind of the vibe. It's very good. I definitely recommend. And I talk all the time about fantasy. My absolute gripe with fantasies being 500 pages long and not a lot happening for their first book. I absolutely hate that. The first book of this was about 400 or 350. Like, it's such a short read. It really just immerses you in the world. They really just trim the fat. Like, you don't need all of the excessive world building. You kind of learn as you go rather than like it being narrated to you, if that makes sense. So if you're after like a really good duology, I would definitely recommend these. And I'm so excited to read this one. I've been putting it off for so long. And like, how creepy does that look? Like, it's a creepy book. Probably more suited to like fall or winter, but if you're in America and it's winter for you, this would be a great book to read. It's literally the polar opposite to just for the summer. And the last book is a book that you think will be 5 stars. This is another one that Zach got me for Christmas, and I was so excited when I unwrapped it. I think I literally squealed out loud like a child. That is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Babel is a standalone book. It's basically a book that highlights the origin of languages, but in a fantasy, magical realism kind of way. I'm gonna read it to you because I'm gonna butcher it because I don't even know what it's about yet because I haven't read it. So, Oxford, 1836, the city of dreaming spires. It is the centre of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robert Swift thought Babel a paradise until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? And if you didn't know, R.F. Kuang is actually the author of the Poppy War trilogy. I've only read the first one, but I gave that 5 stars. Like, it was such a good first book in a series. The magic system in that book was so interesting. It was definitely pivoting on literary fiction rather than just straight fantasy, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm gonna love this book. I feel like it's gonna be 5 stars. I feel like it's a book that I'm gonna think about for a really long time. I also think it's gonna be very similar to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which again, I rated 5 stars. So I'm so excited to read this. And it was book of the year, so that's gotta say something, surely. Oh, I'm so excited. That is my little TBR for Feb, as well as Iron Flame and Magnolia, The Long Way Home. So I think I should hopefully get through those 5 books, and I'm really excited about them. Like, they're such fun books to read. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know there weren't as many books as there usually are, and I know it's been a really long time, but I've been trying to be less hard on myself and just reading books that I really want to read. Like, really just enjoying the reading process. I feel like that's so important. I never want this to feel like a job or a chore. I just want to feel like I can share my innermost thoughts of all the books that I really love with you guys. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, let me know, and I will see you guys for my next video. Bye.